Hey guys, Justin here. We're really bringing out the tracks that are actually toughest for me here. I'm not too good at saving right front tires in these situation type races, so you'll see what I have to say during the race and kind of explaining what's going on, and I think you can learn a thing or two from it. But anyways, we're going to be going to the hot lap here. It's going to be a first lap hot lap, but as I'll describe, you might want to do it on second lap if your first lap is just uncomfortable for you. As always, a like on the video is the #1 way to help out the channel, and I would really appreciate if you guys left one for me, and subscribe if you want to see more content. Alright, let's get right to the lap.
Hello, gamers. I'll be unable to join you this month.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm just watching the Mike Little stream.
Unless this race finishes like
Green flag,
instantly,
green
which I
flag.
don't think it
Okay, here comes your first time black.
will. I'm race controlling a Martinsville race of all things. Looks pretty clean so far, though. Now I jinxed it, they're gonna be 30.
Well, I'm going to need you to...
Oh, okay.
One more lap. 40.305.
Alright, let's take a look at that. So for qualifying, I did hot lap on the first lap. I don't recommend that for everyone though, and I'll explain why right here. You're going to need a lot of speed to make your first lap the competitive lap. And that requires doing a really good run up. And this is actually just about as difficult as any of the corners. So what I do, if you want to go for this, is I start up high. So I'm going to be starting at the wall. And so you think, okay, you're just going to run the wall the whole way. No, that's not what we're going to do here. Because the top has no grip compared to what the racing line has. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to start up top and then almost instantly get off the throttle to half, but only for as long as it takes for us to be able to angle ourselves down the hill. And then we full throttle for as long as possible after that. So let's see here. So half throttle, car turns down the hill, and we bring it back up slowly, slowly, slowly. And this is going to take a lot of wheel and throttle control because this is a lot looser than it seems. So we're going to be doing that. And you can see here it's a good amount of speed, especially for an outlap. So this is how you can get comparable speed off of a corner for an outlap as you can off of lap 1. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, and I cut the apron here. I don't think it's completely necessary. It might even hurt me a tiny bit. I'm not sure. It's either even. It could go either way, honestly. I think it's a little bit better. That's my opinion. But it's marginal. If you don't want to go down there, you don't have to. So here's what I do for turn 1. So we're going to want to get to this seam. This is what we're aiming for in both our qualifying and our race line. Everything is going to be on this seam. Just think of this seam as the apron. You don't want to go under it because there's a banking change there. And that banking change will make your car handle completely different and mostly for the worst. So what I'm doing here is I'm getting an early arc going because I want to get to the bottom as soon as possible, but I want to do it in a way where my car is rotating as much as possible. So I'm still holding full throttle, just about, but I'm turning my car off the wall. So I'm on the wall, turn the car off the wall before you get off the throttle. And then make sure your car's headed into the corner just about, and then you back it down to about half throttle. And this is for as long as it takes to get your car really pointed towards the apex of your seam. So you see here how my nose is kind of lined up with the seam. You want to be half throttle basically until that point, and then you can get it down there and you start bringing it slowly up. So I'm at like 60% now, and then sometimes you have to kind of modulate it because of the looseness. And then once you feel like you have enough rotation, and this will take a couple practice attempts to get this feeling. It's just a timing, really. You go from saying, okay, I want to be on the seam, to saying, okay, it's time for me to drive off the corner. And when you think it's time to drive off the corner, you push it into full throttle and all your handling woes begin. But in this case, we're able to drive up. And while we're driving down the backstretch here, quick note, if you just jump into any sort of practice session, make sure you jump into one that's early or that just started, because this track temperature raises by about 9 degrees even in the first hour of the practice. So when a track is colder, the track is going to be faster, and qualifying is going to be on a cold track relatively. So you want to be either in testing sessions at the very beginning or practices at the very beginning if you're trying to simulate real qualifying runs. All right, back to turn 3 here. So again, we turn off the wall, same idea. We don't want to get off the throttle before turning off the wall. So you see, before these 3Ms end, I want to be turning off the wall already. And I get a little bit more wheel input as I get off the throttle, but the angle has already been started. And the same idea, we back it down to half throttle, we get it down to the seam, and then once we feel like we've apexed on the seam, we full throttle. Now, here's a very interesting quirk about Michigan qualifying. You're here, and you say, okay, well, I want to carry as much speed as possible, so I want to just slide up to the wall, right? You always talk about how you don't want to choke yourself off. Well, in cars that are relatively bogged down, like the Arca car, with them going full throttle, this is actually a place where you want to actually choke your car off, about 1 to 1.5 lanes off the wall. So you're going to see I'm going to be aiming around here to be off the wall and exit. So I actually don't get as low as I want to. I kind of want to stay on that seam as long as possible, but at the end of the day, our car is kind of sliding up naturally. We're not fighting it per se, but we only let it go about a lane and a half off the wall. And then that allows us to shortcut more on the front stretch. And we're traveling a shorter distance to get to the start-finish line. And we get a decent time. Unfortunately, I did not record that .288. That would have been good for the bragging rights, but we ran at .305, which should be a good time for most top splits here. I think the 2s might be what you need to get pole, but you'll see here that pole might not even matter too much with what we have going on the race. So let's take a look at it. All right, so first attempt real quick. I'm going to try this again because I didn't do too well. I only got 7th, and I know kind of why, so I want to see if my ideas are correct of what went wrong, and we'll try it again. So I was just a little bit slow on long run, a little bit more tire wear than those around me, and I think that that was mainly because of me missing corner entry just a little bit too much. So you see the turn in that these guys are getting compared to me. So look at the 3 guys in front of me compared to me here. They all get that turn down earlier, and I am just stuck in that lane. I'm not forcing it down. That's when I miss a corner. And honestly, a lot of it's just falling asleep at the wheel and missing my timing, just kind of getting lulled behind a guy, kind of waiting for them to go. So that's a lesson. You really want to be proactive with your line. You don't want to follow someone per se, because if you follow someone, then you're going to be only as good as your reaction times are. And when we're that close, I turn in, it just fails. So just enough of those, and basically I roasted my right front to a point where I couldn't compete at the end. And then the other thing that we learned is that saving tires for the first 10 or so laps, you are going to be catching the leader if they try to just pull away, not saving. That's what happened here. Although James did a really good job of staying in the main pack, finishing 4th, even though he tried to run away at the beginning. So it could be a viable strategy eventually to try to run away, since this is only a 25-lap race. But I think the power of the draft just makes it a little too much. So we're going to give it another go, and I'll get back again. All right, so we did a second race here, a little bit better. We got 5th, but it was much more competitive on our end. We were up in the pack, and it kind of just came down to racecraft at the end, kind of just who was able to get past who. So at some point, I was a couple laps to go. I was able to get to the outside of Larry, but just was not able to complete the pass, and then that caused me to get kind of lose some tire and get kind of freight trained here. We'll see what happened here. I think he goes for a move at some point. Yeah, he goes for a move there, and I'm able to get up top. But I just, if I just squeezed him enough there, you see. And that's what you gotta do to get passes around here. You gotta either hold people on the bottom and squeeze them, or you gotta really have a good tire disadvantage. And that took some life out of my tires, but I was pretty happy at the way I was holding on to tires on the way then. And like I said before, the only difference was just me executing, really. So I was in third, and we're just kind of driving along and getting bottom early, kind of waiting on the throttle. I kind of clip a little bit. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, and just use it to get loose. So as my car was getting loose pretty late into the run, and I used other people freight training, because I got freight trained enough to know that the freight train works. So I used Larry getting under him there to get back under him, and there's a lot of good battling up here. I just probably didn't hold on to enough tire there.
Driving these contracts.
But it was still pretty good. I think it's a good starting point for you guys. So as you can see here, I'm following Larry, and he's the eventual winner. He saves the most tire, and you can see that he really just gets his car loose there on the bottom, even more sideways than mine probably. And that's saving his right front. He's really wanting to save right front there. And we'll just stick behind him a little bit more here. Kind of just watch from my perspective and watch from his angle here. So he backs up the corners a lot. So I was surprised how much he was backing up the corners. And on the long run, that's what helped him, is he was able to carry more speed off the corner by backing it up, and he was taking less tire life off too. And as you can see here, the best way to make passes is to follow someone else making passes. So he gets past him here, and then in the next lap I just get right under him and get that pass there. So that's kind of how things go. I could have gotten third. I tried for a little more, suffered, got back to fifth, but all in all, feel better about the speed, feel more confident about it for you guys. So hopefully you took some lines from this, and you can kind of see what strategy has to go into it. It's a really big mix of how much you want to burn your tires versus track position. So really starting up front will be great. If you start first, don't wear the tires too much. You might be in the catbird seat if you're second, honestly, because you can kind of go off of what the first place is doing and then save off of them at that point. But yeah, you see that line, he's just barely getting to the seam, but he's kind of keeping it a little sideways the whole way. And that's really how you save your right front in these cars. It's very interesting. So hopefully I'll be able to do a little bit better on that in the future, and you guys can kind of understand it too. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you all on the track.